Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ega Citahol Sabila. I will describe my reading results through the book report. The title is The Little Prince, and the author is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and this is fiction book with 96 pages, difficulty 3, type of book as novel, fable, and fairy tale. Setting of subject is in the Sahara Desert, most of this book. Why do I choose this book? This novel is a unique and awesome literature, but the writing is easy to be understood for all beginners. This novel is also a light reading that can be read every single day. It is nice to have a book that is deep yet able to be put on a shelf for a few weeks if I don't have time to get around to it. Actually, I read this novel as an assignment to make some book report in factual and discursive reading course. This is not only reading for children but also all age. You can even talk about it with friends and family who have read it. I read it because it is quality reading, but with a small number of pages. I'm also very interested after reading some of the synopsis of this novel. In my opinion, it was not written purely for kids, because the problems of the characters presented are not from the point of view of a child's understanding. Children's thinking is relatively simple. However, with that story, it will remind us of the questions in childhood that were too complicated to understand at that time. I'm very grateful for this book. The life lessons taught in The Little Prince are immense. All the stories are still related to the problems of this era, even though the writing of this book has been a long time. There is no part of the book that still attached to me is the piece with the rose. The little prince very cared for this very demanding rose, but he learned a bigger lesson that the few things he did to take care of her. It teaches us about caring for another. Characters and plot. There are some characters in this novel. First, the narrator. He represents tame loneliness and he is the image of reality. Second, the little prince is the main protagonist of the story who has a broad experience. Third, the rose. She represents a stereotypical view of women. She is fickle, self-absorbed, and flirtatious. Fourth, the king. One thing that describes him is strange grown-up. Fifth, the vain man. He is very old. Sixth, the drunkard. He is unhappy person and need help. 7. The businessman. People were busy and spent time in vain. 8. The lamplighter. He deals with something else than himself. His job is useful. 9. The geographer. He is not sensitive to his surroundings. 10. The fox. Easy to give help to others even with conditions. 11. A snack helper for the little prince so he can return to his planet. The plot. The narrator introduced himself as a man who holds the position that adults don't have the widest possible imagination and understanding. He is a pilot who has made a crash landed in the Sahara Desert and has a problem with his engine of his plane. Then he made an acquaintance with the little prince he met before. The little prince tells the narrator about his life, such as the planet where he lives. He talks about baobab seedlings that spread overall to his asteroid planet. The prince traveled to a series of asteroids and he met some characters. Firstly, he met a king who requires obedience, but he has no subjects until the arrival of the prince. The next inhabitant of the planet is an arrogant man who wants nothing from the little prince except flattery. The prince also meets the drunkard, who tells that he must drink to forget how ashamed he is of drinking. Subsequently, the prince meets a businessman who maintains that he owns the stars and he knows exactly how many stars there are. The little prince then encounters a lamplighter. He follows orders to light a lamp each evening and put it out each morning although his planet spins so fast that dust and downpour happen once every minute. Finally, the little prince meets a geographer to find out his planet, but the geographer couldn't help the prince. On Earth, the prince meets a snake. The snake says that he can return him to his planet. The little prince also meets a flower and a fox. In the end, the narrator says that the little prince's body was missing in the morning, so he knows that he returned to his planet. My general opinion about this book is, after spending my whole break time for reading this book, I have much insight into what is life, what is the importance of being an adult, and many more. This story shows how most adults lose the simple things in their lives, such as love, friendship, and the beauty of the world, because they are too focused on gaining wealth and power. They are tricked into believing numbers of having a certain amount of money is important, but their lives are meaningless. This book also teaches all readers that it is important to always look below the surface to really understand the things that people fail to do, because they only look at the face value of things, as indicated at the beginning of the story. This is a very vital message for every child or adult to understand, as this book shows its sides very beautifully. The writing of the book itself is written as simple as possible, but the imagination and maturity of the story keep the readers interested. The book also eliminates the saturation of readers with the use of image to help readers increase their imagination of things that may be unfamiliar. The author's writing tone can be symbolized as something mysterious and secret. The form of a little prince suddenly appears in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and he talks about interplanetary travel. The whole story is centered on the characters' search for answer to the mysteries of life that cannot be fully understood. What did I like best about this book? Maybe the first impression when you see the cover of this book is like seeing a small children's fairy tale that is reading every time you go to sleep. The mind will change 360 degrees after reading just one paragraph of this book. What really made me interested is that this book has many recommendations from many people around me. Besides that, this book is able to become a widely famous masterpiece with only 96 pages. Actually, I'm not the type of person who can read a large number of pages in just a few days. For a novel, I usually spend almost 2 weeks reading. Therefore, I thought this book would suit my reading habit very well. After getting into the story in this book, I think I fell in love with the narrator's thinking when he was a kid. For a young child, the views he has about response to adults are very mature. At a young age, he was able to choose his own passion that he would pursue. The plot presented in this book makes such a good impression that this book is not just a classic story about a little prince. Indeed, at first I was a little confused by the change in the time setting that occurred. But over time, it became the main attraction of this book. I think the author is very good at playing words. The sentences in this book form an extraordinary series. The proof this book is still famous today. What did I like least about this book? Actually, it's really hard to find anything I didn't like about this book, but some of these things bothered me while I was reading this book. It's not a big deal, but if you were me, it could be something that affects your reading comprehension. I'm a teenager and have tried to read it many times in the slightly complicated section, and I'm very connected to my child's inner self. This book has a boring side where nothing really happens, such as very big conflict and a little boy talking to a man he doesn't know. I think it's a little strange because young children generally only talk to people they know. I think something I don't really like is the cover of the book. If the form of writing presented by the author is not entirely for small children, even the language used is aimed at teenagers and above, the cover should also reflect the level of language difficulty. The cover used is too childish. If a small child buys the book, I think he will be a little confused because the language used is a bit complicated. Likewise, with the plot of the story, for me, a great work is a work that has many comments from netizens because he will continue to improve his work until it becomes a great work with a motivation of readers' comment. That's very helpful. This work has been extraordinary. Hopefully, in the future, there will be more quality works so that this work will change the world for the better. My favorite quotation is, "And now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invincible to the eye." Rating of this book by me is 3 stars or a good book. Recommend this book to my friends. I would love to recommend The Little Prince to my friend. If I find a movie, reading, or something that is extraordinary, in my opinion, I will always tell my friends and recommend them. I want to share something that makes me feel better with everyone around me so that they feel as good as I do. Moreover, this book brings readers to deeper into the psychology of a child. Even though adults or teenagers certainly have a child side that will always stick to them. So, this book might be suitable for all age, good for my friends, my sister, my mom, and my dad, and many more. I know my friends well because we live in the same dormitory. Some of my friends lived in the same room as me and we got along well with each other. We are not allowed to use handphone except at certain times, so our time is more focused on chatting and reading. So I feel that this book is really suitable for my friends to read or in the dormitory. So some of us who have different opinions prefer international standard books because of their guaranteed credibility. But there are also those of us who like local books because they are more suited to their reading tastes. But by reading The Little Prince, I'm sure my friend from all reading style will suit this book because it's kind of common to all walks of life. This is a wonderful book for all age.